Hello everybody and welcome to my little studio here in Germany. I'm going to talk about wavetable synthesis again today, but specifically about wavetable editing, morphing, import and modulation options in 3 wavetable synthesizer plugins that feature wavetable editors of varying complexity. So the first plugin is Xfer Records Serum. The second one is Tone2 Icarus 2. Just gonna hide the keyboard here because the interface is a little bit bigger. And the third one is Vital. Vital is a free one. It also has a paid option, but you can use it for free, which is very nice. If you don't want to spend money on a wavetable synthesizer, Vital is a good option. It's also a very flexible synthesizer. Very similar to Serum in a lot of regards, but Serum has some special tricks, so to speak. Icarus also has some advantages over the other 2 synths, but the common factor is that they all feature some kind of wavetable editor. In Vital, it is a little bit rudimentary, but you can do some interesting stuff with it. But Serum and Icarus are my 2 favorite plugins for wavetable editing. Yeah, today I'm just gonna give a quick overview for these 3 plugins, show you how to import waveforms and wavetables and how to use the wavetable editors. This will be the main point, but also I'm gonna talk very quickly about modulation and morphing options in these plugins. So let's start with Xfer Records Serum. You see the wavetable in oscillator A here. And this is the parameter that controls the wavetable position. So let's listen to it. Make it a little bit slower so you hear the changes in tone. And you see I have already assigned a low frequency oscillator to this wavetable position knob. So based on this LFO, it scans through the wavetable and gives all the different waveforms. So from waveform R all the way to waveform 256 and back. And yeah, this is the knob where you open the wavetable editor. And of course you can change the LFO form, so this way it just scans all the way through and starts back at the beginning. You can also put curves in or make some more interesting. You can do all kinds of stuff with it, whatever you like. But let's put it back in the middle, so it scans the back wavetable back, forth and back. Yeah, let's maybe start with a init patch, so you see how to do everything from scratch. The init waveform, you have a wavetable with just one waveform for the init patch, but of course you can very quickly you can add more waveforms. Now we have 3 waveforms, all have a saw shape, but let's put a simple, we have to go to grid size 1. Here you change the grid size. If you go to 0, you can just paint. Oh, it looks a little bit like an analog sine wave. So now we have a clean sine wave with grid size 1. That means you have, if you put one of these shapes in here, it takes up the whole waveform. So let's put a sine wave here. Extend the grid a little bit so you can paint a square wave very easily. And yeah, let's do let's do a saw wave like this. And when we look at our main window now, we can see, depending on wavetable position, it just selects one of the 3 waveforms. But we can add our LFO to the wavetable position knob, and it goes through all 3 waveforms. Of course, it jumps in between the waveforms because we didn't tell Serum that there are waveforms in between that it should play. But you can just go here to the Morph tab. So these are your tools for editing the wavetable. This is for painting, this is for other edits. You also have formulas here, like mathematical formulas. But I'm gonna talk about this probably in another video because it's a little bit more complicated and also advanced. So if you're just a beginner with wavetable synthesis, you might not want to dive into the depth of this stuff. You can just play around with your wavetable editing here and with the main synthesizer window, and you will have many options to create all kinds of sounds. So here you process single waveforms, here you process the whole wavetable, here you add or remove waveforms from the wavetable, here you sort the wavetable by spectrum, average spectrum, peak spectrum, or you can also randomize or reverse the table order or some other sort options. Here you can import either wavetables or audio files or single cycle waveforms. So this is a single cycle waveform, this is another single cycle waveform, and this is the 3rd single cycle waveform. So you can just add another waveform and then import a single cycle waveform, like a specific sine shape with some slight harmonics, if you like that, or some interesting saw shape, or a more complicated waveform, or some noise or whatever. You can just import it to a specific waveform slot, so to speak. And here you can export the wavetables 8, 16, 32-bit, or you can export all single cycle waves or only a selection. But let's go back to the morphing. You have multiple morphing options here. Crossfading and spectral morphing. You can also remove the tables, and you have 2 spectral morphing options in which you can zero the fundamental phase or all phases. So if we morph with 0 fundamental phase, it looks like this. If we just do a spectrum morphing, you get this, and crossfading. Crossfading is the most basic one and gives for if your waves are very simple like this, it gives very good results. More complicated stuff, I often go with spectral morphing. And this, in this case, it has some kind of non-linear linear vibe to it. Sounds a little bit more organic. This sounds more like basic crossfading, which it is. So here you have the 3D view, and you can see it cycles or scans through all the 256 waveforms. We actually have 256. You see here 1, 129 and 256. It automatically generated all the in-between waveforms when you click on the morphing option here. If you do something like normalize each waveform, then you actually see them really like burned or bounced down. Of course, then you can remove the morph tables, and you have to go back here. And now you can remove the morph tables. You are back to the jumping in between the 3 waveforms. Let's go back to crossfading. And here you have some special options like resampling, copy oscillators, init modulation, preset, and so on. I'm gonna just copy the oscillator A over to oscillator B and do the spectrum morphing here. So you see the difference that you get in the table, and you can compare it better. Let's assign LFO1 here. And here you see the differences between crossfading and spectrum morphing without zeroing phases. Yeah, in this case it sounds a little bit smoother. The spectrum morphing has some more like non-linear vibe to it. Yeah, that's basically it. The basics of wavetable editing. We can go here now and do all kinds of stuff with the waveforms. As you can see, now we just flip the first waveform. It doesn't take over into the morphing, the morph tables, so you have to do crossfade again. And now you see it's crossfading between the flipped waveform, the flipped first waveform. Let's do another crossfade, so it's back to the original. And you can also filter, sample redox, send to the noise oscillator. So here we have a noise oscillator. You can send the waveform in there, the wavetable. Oh no, it's the waveform. Here we are, it's simple. And you can shift horizontal to zero crossing, flip horizontal, horizontally, flip vertically. So this is what you do to single cycle waveforms. So to this, or this independently. And the process tab gives you all kinds of options to process the complete wavetable. So you can normalize the complete wavetable, remove DC offset, flip vertically, yeah, of course, flip horizontally. And fade edges, X-fade edges. This I think takes in account both ends of the waveform. Filtering based on the grid size. Remove fundamental. So this is an interesting thing you can do to make more noisy or harmonically rich wavetables. Here you see the sine wave only has the fundamental. So this is like what you get in an additive synthesizer. So the different sine waves or different bins, it's called here. And scan all the way through. And if we remove the fundamental, just takes it out. And the first waveform we had is just a sine wave. So it basically silences the first waveform. But for the second waveform, you see it just removed the fundamental. Do it again, or you see here now we are table 100 at waveform 129 because this is the midpoint of the wavetable, and here we have our second basic waveform that we had without the fundamental. So yeah. Here, of course, the lowest frequency, so to speak, is removed, the lowest sine wave that you have in there. And all the harmonics, therefore, are getting more pronounced. So if you want to make a very harmonics-rich wavetable without the fundamental, you can use this function. You can also remove low spectra based on the grid size. So it removes more. Yeah, here you can change the grid, so you have a different effect. You can also resize table to be half, so you get the double number. When you have 128 tables, you can resize them, go to 256. Let's just try this. Let's just delete everything from 129, remove selected to end. Now we have 128 waveforms. Process, resize tables to be half. And you see, now it takes the first half of the first table and puts it into a complete waveform. And the second half of the first waveform is now the second waveform. For some waveforms it can make sense, but you see in this case it just flips between the first and the second half of the tables. But for instance, if you do resize tables to be double, 1/2 number, so it puts basically the first two waveforms into the first waveform, and so on for every two waveforms. But you can do some like processing on this level. And then now I added a pulse width modulation. Here, create pulse width modulation from this table to all. So it just changes the pulse width. And now we can resize tables to be half. You see we get an interesting effect in the second half of the table where the modulation is getting stronger, because then you don't have the symmetrical waves. So you see here, this is symmetrical in the beginning, but in the end with the pulse width here, for instance, you see it's not symmetrical anymore. So if you take the half of this table, of course it's not, the first table is very different from the second, so you get this vibrato-like effect. Let's take this out again. So we have our basic waveforms again. And yeah, here you see we did the spectral morphing here. So let's just test. If we use the spectra of the second wavetable and put it on our first wavetable, here set spectra from other oscillators. So it takes the spectrum of every wavetable in the second oscillator and tries to adjust the spectrum of every table in the first oscillator based on the second spectrum. We should put, let's just do another morphing here. So we have 256 tables again, and let's do this again. Yeah, you see, so even though the table is different, it sounds a little bit like the second wavetable we have here, because all the spectra of all the waveforms are adjusted based on this wavetable. Yeah, and you have some other like blur spectra. You can also do this. would call it some kinds of smoothing or blurring. You can also blur phases or take the phases from the other oscillator, or you can take the spectrum or phase of one waveform and put it on the complete wavetable. So you see, you really have a lot of options in this process tab that, when used creatively with different generated waveforms, really open up a whole world of sound design, so to speak. Let's do a crossfade morph this time. Process it again so we can see it nicely. And yeah, here you see you have a different, some interesting crossfading between the different waves. Let's play it. And of course, there are very different ways in which you can use stuff like this. You can, for instance, set the rate of an LFO very, very slowly, and then use this to just make some slight tone or timbre changes for long pad-like sounds. You can make, you can use like a middle ground length to maybe make an interesting lead or bass line or longer bass line, or you make it very hard, very fast to get some vibrato-like effect or something like that, to get a wobble-like effect. So really wavetable editing in combination with modulation options such as you have in Serum really opens up a whole world of sound design or sound synthesis. Of course, we haven't even tried to use any of the other options such as filter or the effects here. And this is just by editing a wavetable and putting on one modulator on our wavetable. Now, another thing I want to show you today for all of the three synths we're talking about is this tab here. Here you have like a third dimension of editing or of morphing the wavetable, which is like sync, bend, pulse width modulation, asymmetric, flip, mirror, remapping, which is just you get another window where you can tell Serum how to remap, your wavetable. So all these morphing options, here you have frequency modulation, quantization, even ring modulation, amplitude modulation, or frequency modulation from one of these other oscillators here. So you can frequency modulate from oscillator B or from your sub oscillator or your noise oscillator here. And this in combination with wavetable editing and the wavetable position with some modulation. Oh, we have to put this on. Let's change this to LFO2. Make it slower. And of course you can modulate. You modulate the strings of the morphing here. Yeah, you can get all kinds of tone and timbre changes. Here in this display you also see the morphing in action. which can be nice. So this without this morphing dimension. When you switch the morphing on, you see how the waveform changes. Yeah, we have lots of harmonics already in this wavetable. If we do it with a pure sine wave or more or less pure sine wave, you get very different sound. Yeah, the FM modulation you don't see in this window. Only the, so to speak, mathematical operations you can do. Yeah, that's it basically. I think I showed you everything I wanted to show. Importing, maybe 1 or 2 words about the import options. You can import all kinds of files here, but if you have a wavetable that's already cut or exported from some other wavetable editor or wavetable synth, it's very easy. You can often just import audio via fixed frame size. Use this, put this, and here you can put the frame size, or you just let Serum guess. And Serum usually guesses right, at least my experience. If you have simple wavetables that are clear, if you have wavetables that are based on like 2 repetitions of a waveform or similar waveform in one waveform, so to speak, might get it wrong. But my experience with this guessing function, so import audio via fixed frame size and let Serum guess, this really works very well. Of course, if you know how big your wavetable is, you can just put the size in here. Now I put a wrong size in, and you see it puts 1 waveform, spreads it out over 4 slots or 4 final waveforms here. So you get a very vibrating thing that you probably don't want. But if you import it again, let Serum guess, you see every waveform is very neat in its own place in the wavetable. Yeah, I think that's it for Serum. So you see Serum has a very nice wavetable editor, many modulation options, only 1 morphing slot here, only 1 morphing option that you can use in parallel, but some nice options for this slot. So it's a very nice and flexible synth, and it's no wonder that many people like it very, very much. Yeah, I'm probably come back to Serum for an additional video where I talk about LFO point modulation, which is a very nice thing that I think only Serum has. Maybe some other synths also have it, but among these that I'm talking about today, I think only Serum has it. And some other specials such as importing images and the formulas that you can use in the Wavetable editor. But now let's come to Tone2 Icarus, which is one of my favorite synths besides Serum. I have some presets of mine. Here the MTS presets are in the factory sound bank of Tone2 Icarus, so I might be a little bit biased, but I think you will see that it's also a very, very capable wavetable synthesizer. It's basically similar in many regards to what I've just shown you in Serum. It has an LFO section here, 3 LFOs, 2 multi-step envelope generators, which can also serve as LFOs, another step LFO, which you can use to make like trance gate like effects. And for envelope generators, one for volume, one for the filter, and 2 auxiliary that you can put on anything. You can also put the volume envelope additionally on anything, but it's already hardwired to the volume. It also has 3 oscillators, which is one more as Serum, of course, and 2 parallel filters in this section. The FX section is a little bit simpler. You have many options, but you can only use 3 effects at a time. Additionally, a feedback, like you can use it as a delay and limiter, and you can do some routing here, but 3 main effects at a time in addition to the 2 filters. It also has a really awesome glitch sequencer, like you might know it from Thorn, which is another plugin that's pretty cool. Here you can use like repeat, gating, tremolo, filter, split crush, degrading, detune, pitch slide, and you can make really nice, slow, glitchy sequencers. Can also use it for other stuff, such as arpeggiators and so on. It's really a cool thing to have, but I'm not gonna talk more about it. Also has a drum sequencer here, basic drum sequencer, which you can use to make like song patches inside of this one synthesizer. So with one instance of Serum, you can already do a little song using the 3 oscillators and drum sequencer here, which is also cool. You have some nice presets here. When you go to a 1 key holder, I think it is. Also made some sequences here, electronica, for instance. I see it's using the drums, no glitching, but some of the effects. Yeah, so you can do lots of stuff with Icarus 2 that you can't do with Serum. It doesn't have a glitch sequencer and it doesn't have a drum sequencer. It only has 2 oscillators and only 1 filter in the main oscillator section. And another special thing about Icarus 2 is in the Wavetable editor, and which is the re-synthesis options, which are to be found here and also in the vocoder section. And if you want to import single cycle waveforms, you have to go to File, or also importing Wavetables. But if you import complete, want to re-synthesize audio files into a Wavetable, you are really you have really nice options in Icarus 2. Can smart pitch snap, a static pitch. This I think is also in Serum, but resynthesis additive for noisy sounds, and the granulator and the vocoder options down here. These are unique to Icarus 2 as far as I know. And when I want to resynthesize, for instance, short vocal sounds or instrument sounds or anything else, I usually reach for Icarus 2 because these options are really great. You just can try out what works for a specific sound, what works best and what you like best. You can try out granulator and the additive, resynthesis for noisy sounds, and maybe some vocoder option. And you already have many options to resynthesize the sound, which is really great. It's very simple to use. You don't have to know how long your sound, the sample is, or do any mathematical operations with it. You just open your editor here, click on here, and you open your wave, and Icarus does the resynthesis for you. This is really great. So when I want to resynthesize sounds in a wavetable, I usually reach for Icarus. When I want to generate a wavetable from scratch, Icarus also has many nice options. You can paint here like you know it from Serum. You can add noise. This is like more like a curve-like thing you can do. Now this is the freeform painting, and here you have grid-sized editing. Or most of these tools you also have in Serum. Here, the smoothing and noise. You also have many options here to change and edit your wavetable, filter options, sweeping options, modify options with frequency modulation, like specific like hollow sound, phase distortion, bit crush, downsample, spectrum-based editing. I'm not gonna go through all of these options you have here. So from sweep to phase, these are all just many options to change the sound of your wavetable. Can show you some. When you use sweep, it's gonna create a big wavetable and sweeping from one parameter to the other. The other, I think you only have one undo step here. I don't like that you only have one undo step. In Serum, you can go back much further in the history. But so you have to plan a little bit ahead of what you want to do with a wavetable. But and this is really, you have so many options here that it's really, here you have a parameter, how much you want this effect to influence your wavetable. You also have some very easy to use stuff like tone warmer by value. So you really don't have to know what the function does. It just is self-explanatory. Denoise by value, low pass, band pass, and so on. Modify all this stuff. Sync square, for instance, with a lower value. And you see it works very fast, and you can change your complete wavetable with these options. You can also have copy, paste, cut, and trim options, and of course you can init very fast. Yeah, so Serum and Icarus both have very nice wavetable editors. I'm using both of them a lot of many times. It depends a little bit on what you want to do and which options you want to use. So sometimes when I want to create a wavetable, I reach for Icarus. Sometimes I reach for Serum. Sometimes I export from Serum into Icarus and the other way around. So really both synthesizers are really great with regard to wavetable editing. Let's make a different saw square sine. That's very nice. So here, if you click here, create wavetable saw square sine, that's what we did in Serum by painting before. You get a saw wave, a square wave, and a sine wave. And this is nice. You can use this. Switch this off. Maybe I init the complete patch here. And let's do this again. Init, create this, and play it. So you see now it's playing the saw wave. Here, this is wave, is your wavetable position knob. In Serum it's called wavetable position. Here it's called waved. Yeah, and you of course can use your LFO to modulate this. It's a little bit slow. Some bit crushing. Yeah, and what you have in the morphing option in Serum, this is here in Icarus. Right now it's at none, but here you have FM, phase distortion or pulse width options, harmonic, modification, sample loops, one-shot wave, form and filter, amplitude modulation, wave shaping, syncing, comp filter, stacking. This is some stuff that's really cool. Also noise, lo-fi. So you can, like in Serum, you can just put a morphing option here. And of course you can modulate this. You already have the LFO, the hard-coded LFO assignments here. I don't even have to use the matrix for this. You can just turn this knob up. Forgot about this. So even if you switch all this off, put in like Wavetables wave. Yeah, so in Icarus a lot of stuff is already hard-coded, so you don't even have to assign it. You have here where you change your wavetable position. This LFO is already hard-coded to this knob, so you just have to turn this up. And the same for the morphing option. LFO2 is already hard-coded to this morphing knob, so you turn this up, and LFO2 is directly affecting this parameter. Of course, for all three oscillators you have the same hard-coded assignments, so sometimes of course you want maybe LFO3 to modulate the wavetable position of oscillator 2, and maybe your MSEG1 to modulate the wavetable position of oscillator 3. But the hard coding in Icarus is that LFO1 is hard-coded assigned to all the wavetable positions in the three oscillators, LFO2 to all the morphing options here in the three oscillators, and LFO3 to the filter cutoff frequency in both filters. But you have to turn the knob up, so you get an effect up or down. Yeah, but if you want to use other assignments, that's no problem at all. Just assign it. It's as simple as in Serum. You just drag and drop. And as I said before, you also have the MSEGs down here, which are very flexible. These LFOs you can't change by clicking into it, but you have many different saws, many different forms, and the interesting thing is you have a shape option here, which you can also modulate. Oh no, you can modulate it, but you can modulate it in your audio workstation. So here you have the shape knob. Yeah, it updates at every new note, so you don't have a smooth modulation, and you can assign it here, but you can assign it in your audio workstation. Let's read this. So yeah, as you can see, Serum and Icarus, two real wavetable beasts, all with their advantages and some disadvantages. But you see all the sounds we did so far, it's just using like one wavetable, some editing, and no effects, no filters, nothing, not even additional envelopes, just like one or two modulators and the wavetable morph and wavetable scanning selection options. So as you can see, wavetable synthesis really offers up a whole new world of sound. Oh, why did I delete this? I did not want to delete this. I did want to put this into our third synthesizer. Yeah, let's switch to Vital. I've already talked much longer than I planned for this video. Vital is a free synthesizer alternative, which is modeled very much, in my opinion, based on what the developers saw in Serum. It's very similar to Serum in many regards, but it's a really great synth, especially since it's free, or there's a free option. You can pay for it, but you also have a free option. It's really very, very easy accessible. If you're new to Wavetable synthesis or you want to check it out, it's a very good option. Even if you have an MPE keyboard, such as Linstrument or Seaboard, here you have your typical parameters that you can use: pressure, lift, velocity, slide, and yeah, here you have your modulators, LFOs. I think it also has more LFOs than what you see here as soon as you assign them. Yeah, I think it also has eight LFOs. How about the envelopes? Let's try it out. Oh, also like 6 or 8 envelopes, I think, or 6 envelopes. And I think 8 LFOs. Let's try it out very fast so I don't tell you something that's not true. Yeah, 8 LFOs, 6 envelopes. This is very cool. A modulation matrix here is very clear, like in Serum 2 or in Icarus. It has some macro knobs, pitch wheel. You can use this to assign something to the pitch wheel of your keyboard or to the mod wheel. And yeah, it also has some random generators. Can also assign this for modulation. So you see, it's really, really nice synthesizer with many options, especially considering that that it has a free option. Serum and Icarus payware, so to say. You have to pay for them to use them. They have a demo period, I think, you can use for free, but Vital is in its basic version is completely free. But it doesn't have all the functions that you can find in Serum or Icarus. For instance, you have some morphing options, but it's a different selection as you see in Icarus or Serum. But it's also a nice selection, so I don't want to talk anything bad about it. It's a very nice selection that you have. And the advantage of Vital is you have 2. So you can use the vocoding together with this FM from Oscillator 2, or let's use Sync. So you can use both at the same time, which of course is very, very nice. I really appreciate it when you have parallel morphing in synthesizers. So this is really an advantage of Vital. You also, in most of the other synthesizers I'm gonna to talk about next time here, Avenger, Pigments, Falcon, Wavetable, you also have parallel morphing. with a limited set of morph options. And in these synthesizers, you don't have wavetable editing options. So Serum and Icarus, in my opinion, are very good with regard to wavetable editing. Vital has some wavetable editing, but it's not as complex by far as the one you find in Serum or Icarus. But nonetheless, it has some editing. I'm going to show you in a second what you can do with it. And here, Avenger, Pigments, Falcon, and Wavetable, they have some morphing options here, phase distortion and FM, for instance, in Falcon. In Pigments, you also have your 4 parallel morphings, also a bit limited by the modular selection, but still you have 4 options. And Avenger, with which is my favorite with regard to the morphing options for the oscillators. I think for all the oscillators, not only the wavetable oscillators. And in Vital here, you, as I said and showed, you have 2 options here. This is really great. But let's talk about the wavetable editing in Vital for a second. Here you can import and export wavetables, but as you can see, it's very, very simple as compared to Serum or Icarus. You only have one import option and that's it basically. So you have to prepare your wavetable differently if it isn't directly read by Vital in the correct way that you want it to read, and so on. Yeah, but with regard to the wavetable editing, I would say it's different from it's very different from what you see in Serum and Icarus, but what I really like about it, here you can paint a little bit. Depending on the grid, when you go to 0 grid, I think it's, yeah, here you can do the snapping to the grid points. So yeah, you have some nice painting options, and you also have some modifiers here. For instance, let's do wave folding, and let's go to high multiplication here. And you see now when you scroll through the wavetable, it folds the wave based on what you put in here. So you can also put this in the middle. And this here, go back to 1. Now you scan through. In the middle it folds the wave very strong. And here at these ends you have your basic wave. And you have additional modifier, your phase shift, wave window, frequency filter, so limiter, wave warp. Let's try the wave warp. Put it here. Oh, I have to put in a value like this. And you see now you have the wave folding and the wave warp in the same wavetable. And whenever you play this, this will also get played. Of course, we have to assign an LFO to the position here. It's a little bit fast, maybe. And here you also can switch between the different displays. You also have like a waveform display here. So yeah, the wavetable editing here is also very nice. You have some modifier options here, and you can put some additional sources in. And of course you have all the painting options here. think I have to go to wave source here. So here you can paint. And this is for painting wavetables. White is very nice, and for these additional modifier, I also like the modifiers you get here, and that you get the wave in the background here, in the display. That's also very nice. So while you don't have the extensive processing options in here, especially if you take into account the formulas here in Serum, this is really crazy. You can put all your own formulas in and so on. Or in Icarus, all of these options. It's also pretty crazy. You don't have all of this stuff in Vital, but you can do very nice painting, and you have some modification options. And as I said, you have two parallel morphing modifiers here, which is a very nice thing to have. And this is, as I said, in Serum and Icarus you only have one morphing option at a time. But of course, in combination with all the wavetable editing and so on, if you know what you want to do, and you can usually do it in Icarus and Serum. But Vital, this is especially nice if you want to play around a little bit with different kinds of morphing. And here you can also play around a little bit, or more systematically, if you know what you're doing with your wavetable painting. So it's all three synthesizers are nice with regard to wavetable editing, and modulation options are great in all three. Morphing options are also nice in all three, but as I said here, I have two in parallel. But I would say these three synthesizers are like my favorites with regard to wavetable synthesizers that also feature editing options. And yeah, I think that was much longer than I expected it to be. I just wanted to show you like the basic import-export options for these three synthesizers, how to edit waveforms and wavetables, how to apply modulation to the morphing and to the wavetable selection. And I think I've shown it to you for these three. So that's it for today. I hope you learned a little bit if you're a beginner or intermediate level, and maybe you even learned a little bit about a synth you don't know if you're a professional. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.